What's up, everybody? Welcome on back in to Press Coverage, where we help you gain an edge in fantasy football. Tonight, we are talking about preseason week one, some of the bigger things that I think happened out there. We're going to talk about, and with me to help me do it is my boy, Tyler Orginski from and I'm your host, always, Wyatt Bertalone. Tyler, how are you doing?
Yeah, thrilled to be here. Thrilled to be back on the mic with you. We go way back here in the fantasy football community space. It's been a bit of time, at least a couple months since we're able to chop it up here about football. There's also football season. Preseason is upon us. Redraft is well underway. Feeling great, man.
Love to hear it. Well, we're going to be talking about what I thought were some of the more intriguing things basically that happened in the first week of preseason. It's tough to sometimes pick some of these out, but I wanted to pick some ones I think might be more under the radar. Obviously, we're going to all know about like some of the bigger names, but I wanted to focus on some of these ones in the backs of drafts to really try and help people find some edges in their drafts moving forward. And then we're going to start off with a player that I know that we both really liked coming into the NFL draft, and that's Jaxson Dart, who I thought truthfully looked pretty darn good for his first start. Even with the grain of salt of it being first week of the preseason, 12 of 19 passing for 154 yards and a touchdown. The touchdown that he threw was a pretty deep ball up the sideline, right in stride with the wide receiver. He was also 3 of 20 for 24 yards rushing, which is my favorite part personally, because this is something that we were hoping was going to translate to the NFL. We thought it would, but we needed some proof of concept, and that he has that scrambling. It was nice to see him do that in that limited time he had. The few things for me were, I think he looks a lot like he did in college, but that's what I wanted, and that's what I was hoping, is that he's going to chuck it deep, check down, or run. And like, that's fine with me. That's what I wanted, and that's what he did. How were you feeling about that first start for him?
I feel great, but also expected to see that because he was my quarterback one going into the season. I continue to have him I had him ranked over Cam Ward the whole time. Well, I'm not silly. I'm going to rank him over Cam Ward in my Dynasty rankings just due to value. But I mean, I drafted 0 Cam Ward and drafted a lot of Jaxson Dart at the end of the first of my rookie drafts. I continue to hammer Jaxson Dart in all my superflex or best ball. Anything where you need multiple quarterbacks, he's on the radar. I mean, single QB leagues, we don't need to be talking about Jaxson Dart, right? But, for best ball, he's my ideal third quarterback in some of the more weaker, I say, quarterback builds when I need 3 quarterbacks. Certainly in all my superflex leagues I try to hammer him a round or 2 early, still a late round pick as my probably third quarterback. I'm not depending on him to be my second quarterback, but he is certainly a guy that I have a lot. The rostership, the ownership, what have you, is quite high on Jaxson Dart. It was good to see, right? But at the same time, to me, that was the expectation that he was going to look good. Yeah. The scooting that we talk about here, that little bit of rushing, he's going to probably run for 30, 40 yards a game, sometimes 25 yards a game, giving us a nice little floor. Kind of think Drake May or Bo Nix, or for some of the older folks here, think like Tannehill, early Tannehill. They're scooters. Yeah. They're not rushers of the football. They're scooters. They can get it done on the ground. And there's never been a doubt with the arm talent that he has. So for me, Jaxson Dart, that was the expectation. He looks great. Still unsure if we're going to see him at the early season. I kind of feel like they're going to, for some reason, trot Russ out there. But Jaxson Dart's going to be on my roster, on my bench, waiting in the wings for his name to be called. And hopefully that time comes sooner than later.
I'll push things further even than you did in that I think we could possibly talk about in 1QB leagues when it's week 5 and he's getting ready to start, and we're saying, is he a streaming option? I think there's going to be a point when that happens. When I did a hot take show on this for this show a little over a month ago, one of my hot takes was, I think Jaxson Dart could start by week 1, and if he does, I think he could finish as a top 16 QB just because of that rushing. And obviously, that's meant to be bold, but I do think he's going to be pushing to start earlier than later. I agree with you. I think Russ is going to start the season. They're going to lose a few games, and they're going to move to Jaxson Dart. And at that point, I think we are going to have some conversations about how startable is he right away because of that rushing.
Yeah, I mean, if he is going to be playing, right, and they're like, oh, Jaxson Dart is a starter, he's obviously going to be in streaming territory. I think there's limitations, obviously, with just the team in general, right? Mm-hmm. Not exactly the strongest. Well, I do think people might be sleeping on the Giants a little bit. I don't think they're at the very bottom tier of offenses by any means. I believe that, he'll be in streaming territory in 1QB leagues if we know he's a starter. I don't think if you were to tell me that Jaxson Dart plays 17 games this season, I don't think calling him a top 16 quarterback is too bold.
Yeah. Quick question, just in that line, what if we knew that Jaxson Dart was starting week 1, where would you rank him among QBs, do you think?
Probably around 16. I'm looking at my ranks right now. Like, he's below Dak, Purdy, Herbert, May. Probably in that, like, Trevor Lawrence, Jared Goff, Jordan Love range. Kind of that, like, mid.
Yeah. CJ Stroud starts becoming a conversation there.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think like CJ Stroud's a better quarterback than Jaxson Dart. But again, it's just fantasy, so the rushing matters. Like, he's rushing more than Jared Goff. He's rushing more than Jordan Love. He's rushing more than CJ Stroud. He's rushing more than Tua. So like that matters in fantasy. So that's about the range that I would start considering him in, kind of that 16 to 18 range, which I think people would consider a little bold, but I'd feel pretty confident. Like, I've been staking my claim on Jaxson Dart since February, March.
Yeah, can't back down now.
I'm not backing down now, man. We're ready to roll. It's Jaxson Dart season as soon as he gets out there.
I'm with you for the same reason that once we get to that section of QBs, it's pocket QBs. So I can make that story of, Jaxson Dart's going to run. So I'm gonna lean into that. All right, another QB on the menu for our second player of the day, and that's Shedeur Sanders. You knew that I was going to do this as a Browns fan, and I want to talk about it.
Can you not talk about Browns? It's impossible. Like, I was like, oh, look, White's talking about the Browns again. Classic. Let's go, man. What do we got?
All right, but this one I actually thought was relevant because one of the big questions for the season is who's actually going to play at QB for the Browns. It matters a lot, who's actually going to be doing it. And I think people want to see Shedeur Sanders climb to the top. And I thought this was at least a good step forward to him becoming the backup to Joe Flacco and having that first shot after Flacco. He's 14 of 23 for 138 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, was sacked twice. He also added 19 yards rushing on 4 attempts, which was a nice little thing to see. I think on first glance, if you're someone who saw the box score and you saw the highlights, you'd be like, wow, Shedeur Sanders looked fantastic. But if you watched the game, you'd see that there was like a handful of plays in which he looked really good, and then a good amount of plays where a lot of those bad habits from college were coming into play. He got away with running out of pressure a decent amount in this game in a way that he's not going to get away with it on a regular basis. But again, there were some nice highlights that, like, the one that I really liked on the second touchdown, he drops back. There's a blitzer coming up the middle. Running back steps in front of him to pick up the blitzer. He steps to the side, resets, fires it in between 2 defenders for the touchdown. And like, those are the plays that I want to see from Sanders, because his pocket presence is one of the things that we were worried about the most when he was coming into the NFL. But we still saw the bad habits throughout the game as well. So while I thought this was encouraging, I do think that a lot of people were starting to get over their skis with how they were talking about Shedeur Sanders after this performance. What do you think?
I mean, I think people in Cleveland just want to get excited about something, Wyatt.
Yeah.
I
we do. We need something.
You need something to hang on to. I would agree with you that people might have, overreacted a bit just looking at the box score and seeing the touchdowns there. But I would agree that we saw what we saw in college. It's like there's some talent there clearly, but it's just a bit inconsistent. One of my NFL comps for Shedeur Sanders was Geno Smith. More of like kind of the pocket passer, not as exciting, but can get it done. One of the things I think is interesting, it took Geno Smith some time to sort it out. Like, the Geno Smith now that we see is not the Geno Smith we got right out of college. Like, it took him 4 or 5 years in the league to like really cement himself as like a legitimate quarterback. Don't think it's too wild to say that could be something similar that happens with Shedeur Sanders. It's clear that there's talent and it exists. I went as far as to say before the draft that I thought Shedeur Sanders had like a solid floor in the NFL, right? Where I think he could have a long-term kind of backup, or, kind of like a long-term like starter, but maybe less exciting. So it's funny because like I spent the entire process evaluating rookies feeling like, all right, like Shedeur Sanders is fine. Like, he's going to have a role in the NFL. And then the draft came and the NFL told me I was wrong. They told me I was very wrong to think that Shedeur Sanders had a future in the NFL. But like, it's tough to, see that box score and then see some of those plays to think like, you catch glimpses of like, he might have it, man. Like, there could be a shot. He needs some time to sort it out, and he's probably going to get time to sort it out. So it looks like there could be a possible decent quarterback in the future. It was nice to like. I don't want to root against the kid, right? Like, I guess that's like kind of the other things. I feel like he catches a lot of heat, being who he is with his family, and I'm rooting for the kid. I hope he does well. I'm rooting, for some success to come in Cleveland. But I obviously got to take the preseason in week 1 here with a grain of salt. But it was good to see him not completely flop.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like, I thought that Shedeur Sanders was going to get a shot at some point this year, but I wasn't particularly jazzed to like play him in fantasy.
Sure.
But the fact that he ran a little bit this game makes me think there's a chance that we could think about him. You know, if we're getting into a tight spot, that Shedeur Sanders might be someone we could turn to if he's starting, if he's going to do that. I do think the Browns are going to pass a lot, so he could potentially get there on volume just because this is a bad team. We saw it last year when they're behind. Stefanski is willing to just drop back and pass over and over again. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't sure if that was going to be enough for Shedeur. Dorian Thompson-Robinson was throwing 40 times a game and it meant nothing. You know, you'd have been way better off playing a skilled player than like playing Dorian Thompson-Robinson at QB spot in Superflex or something like that. But if he's going to run a little bit, that could help things. But I don't know if that's going to happen once the season actually starts, when he gets into real game time.
Yeah, I mean, Jaxson Dart's a player that I'm willing to draft late. Shedeur Sanders is certainly not. So that's just kind of where I'm at with things. I think it's kind of just a monitor, watch from the side sort of thing for me.
Yeah, even as a Browns fan here, I will say that I don't actually think that he is into draftable territory yet. We'd have to get a lot of improvement still and some real confidence that he's going to start a lot of games before you can even think about doing it, even in Superflex leagues.
Certainly.
All right, we're going to take a quick moment to write the FFPC, and when we come back, we've got to talk some Anthony Richardson.
Hey, why do we partner with the FFPC? Because they have the widest variety of fantasy football formats, and it's the easiest place to find all types of fantasy football contests in the world. What if you want to play for high stakes? Well, they have a $6 million prize pool with their Fantasy Players Championship. They also have way too early best ball leagues that start in February and Dynasty leagues. They have the closest thing to a liquid market for orphans that there is in all of Dynasty. And the FFPC has sponsored us for half a decade because we are actually delivering information that can help fantasy gamers, and they're generating so much interest and bringing in so many new users, casual users even. The FFPC creates a unique experience where you can both compete against the best and make money. Use promo code UNDERWORLD to get $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team at the FFPC with promo code UNDERWORLD. Go get it!
We're back here on Press Coverage with Tyler Orginski from FTN talking about some preseason storylines. We're on to Anthony Richardson. It's been quite the offseason and really just quite the last, 2 years, I guess we should say, for Anthony Richardson. It's been a real roller coaster. And, when they signed Daniel Jones to the Colts, there was a lot of speculation that this was going to be Daniel Jones' season, more than likely for the Colts, because he was expected to win a camp battle between him and Anthony Richardson. And it seemed like it was going to go that way for a while here for most people. And then training camp starts, and the word is that Anthony Richardson's just outplaying Daniel Jones. And that doesn't necessarily mean much because it's not a high bar to outperform Daniel Jones, but that's where we were with Anthony Richardson. And then this first game comes around, and what we're afraid of immediately happens. He gets hit with a blindside sack, in which basically any NFL account you've seen comment on it has said, like, it's very clear that this is just a complete misread by Anthony Richardson. He has two routes out to his right. He never even sees the rusher coming at him, completely misplays it. He also hurts his pinky on that sack and then leaves the game. Only attempted 3 passes in the game. So, what are the chances you think Anthony Richardson's actually starting this season?
I feel like 50-50, man. I'm not staking a claim on who I think is going to start here. I think they're both pretty bad. I think Daniel Jones is probably a little bit better of a passer, but Anthony Richardson is probably a little bit better of a runner. This is just not a situation that I'm really that interested in, right? I've been avoiding it pretty heavily in best ball just because I'm like, it's a rough choice. And like taking Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, even though it's late, feels super gross. I am willing to take Anthony Richardson in more managed leagues, like super late. One, because he goes super late, and two, you can just drop him. Like, it's not a big deal. He's not taking up a roster spot like he is in best ball. Because what I'm saying here is I think in managed leagues, we do need to start considering Anthony Richardson because, A, we don't have any clear answers on who the starter is going to be, right? We were feeling like it was Daniel Jones, but right now that does not feel like that is a lock at this point in time. And if Anthony Richardson is starting, why I don't think I'm going to have him ranked outside of my top 15 or even probably top 12 just because of his rushing ability. Think of kind of like Justin Fields. Like every time Justin Fields is a starter, my projections spit out QB8, QB7, QB9, QB6 just because of the rushing. And I feel like Anthony Richardson is very much similar, where it's like, yeah, he's not a great quarterback. He's not a good thrower of the football. But when he's out there actually playing in games, he's running, he's rushing. And that is something we just talked about with the Jaxson Dart. Like, that is something that we need to be paying attention to when we are fantasy analysts. So I need to take Anthony Richardson in those managed leagues, because if he doesn't start, I can drop him. But if he starts, I feel pretty good about every week. I'm going to find a way to get him into my, let's say, top 10, top 12. So I think he's worth it. I think he's worth taking the dip right now and taking that risk in managed leagues, because you can drop him if it just goes south.
I'm with you basically lockstep here. I've been kind of avoiding the QBs just in general on the team. It's too hard, I think, to try and predict who's going to start or when they're going to start. If they even declare a starter, I don't think you can have confidence in them staying the starter for long. But I do like your point about managed leagues for Anthony Richardson, because, yeah, just the ability to actually move on from him at any given point makes it okay there. Any sort of best ball format where you're locked into Anthony Richardson for the season feels pretty rough, because he's not exactly free, in leagues where you're drafting multiple QBs like that. So, yeah, it's tough. But do you have a preference at this point for QB for the weapons? And are you drafting the weapons at all?
I definitely had talked myself into Josh Downs earlier, but the steam has caught up and the heat has caught up to where I'm like, I don't think I'm drafting Josh Downs anymore. And I was never drafting Pittman in the first place. I have really warmed up to Tyler Warren. I'm not going to lie. Like, I in the pre-draft process, I was firmly, Team Colston Loveland over Tyler Warren. And while I'm not going to take the L, that was more of a dynasty take, and I'm not ready to take the L. It does kind of feel like Tyler Warren's getting a lot of good press right now, and he's looking really good. So he is one player that I'm willing to kind of like possibly eat some crow, have some capitulation around, where like, all right, maybe we do need to pay attention to Tyler Warren, because at the end of the day, the passing volume might not be great, but he just seems like a stud, a can't miss prospect, great hands, and at the tight end position, it's already gross enough as it is. So Tyler Warren is a guy that lately I've really warmed up to. But in terms of like Josh Downs and Pittman hasn't really been somebody on my radar at all. And then Downs was, and then he was on everybody's radar. Now the price is just not, it's not bad, but there's just other players around where Josh Downs is going now that I'm like, okay. And also, when I was feeling better about Downs, I at the time felt better about Daniel Jones starting. And now I don't feel that way. So it's just kind of like, I don't really want these pass catchers. If Anthony Richardson is starting, I just want Anthony Richardson, because I think he's a top 12 quarterback almost as a top 12 upside every single week he starts. So it's ebbed and flowed as the season and the news has changed for me. The Colts have been a little bit of a story. I certainly have changed my takes on them, and I certainly are going to change them as we get closer to the season and get more information, man. But in the end of the day, I think it's just the Colts is just, there's not much to get excited about. That's really what it comes down to, man. JT should be fine, but besides that, it's just tough to really paint the picture and tell yourself a story of feeling confident that this is going to actually happen.
It's funny. We talk fantasy football with each other on a fairly regular basis, and we've come to the same spot on Tyler Warren independently. So it's actually nice to hear you say that, because I've warmed up, and the main reason is that regardless of who the QB is, I think he's the one position in the passing game that can work, that can make easily work. No matter who's at QB, what's going on, because he's going to be a lot of his work is going to be after the catch, easy completions, and working after it. So I've been warming up a good bit there too. All right, fourth player of the day, Will Shipley, who looks to be the clear handcuff for the Eagles to Saquon Barkley. But if you've listened to the show in the past or have seen anything I've said on Twitter, this is something I was trying to let people know about very early on in the offseason. I thought it was very clear that this was going to be his job to be the backup to Saquon Barkley. Basically, the only move they made was bringing in A.J. Dillon. And if you've watched A.J. Dillon play in recent history, not too excited about it. And this first game kind of just solidified that. He received all 8 opportunities that he got in the game before A.J. Dillon received a single one. He was 7 for 48 rushing. He caught a pass for 4 yards, excuse me. The 48 rushings on 7 carries looks really good. I will note that a lot of that came on a play in which the seas parted for Will Shipley to run through and picked up a big gain.
But that's why we like him.
But that's why we like him, because that's the Eagles. Exactly. So now, I know that you like Will Shipley as well, but I bring it up because he's going as like RB60 everywhere. And I thought he's been like one of the better values across fantasy football all offseason. And he's like had a moment where he climbed a little bit, but he's falling back down right now, which is odd. Maybe after this game, he'll start to climb a little bit. But even if he climbs, he's a big value to me. I want to know, how aggressive do you want to be with Will Shipley?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a couple rounds ahead of everybody. I mean, I've had to stop drafting Will Shipley in best ball because I'm like over 30% at this point in time, because I would just take him at the end of the draft, like him and Alec Ayumin, or like two guys where I'm like, I gotta pump the brakes.
Yes.
Like, they're just so free, and I just feel so good about their opportunity that is going to be presented to them, that like, man, I don't think they're. I take Will Shipley round 15 on Underdog. Like I'm well ahead. Like once, I don't know how you feel, but for me, like once you hit about round 15 in Underdog, so just to be clear, that's like the last 4 rounds, 15, 16, 17, 18. I'll take anybody. I don't care about ADP anymore. Like to me, it's just like, I'm going to grab my guys. If they're going undrafted, I probably won't take them in 15, but like I'm trying to get the guys that I want on my team, and they're all dart throws at that point in time. So yeah, man, Will Shipley is a guy that I am willing to take a couple rounds ahead of ADP, just because I believe that he is one of those guys where he's an underrated handcuff for sure, but I think he's probably one of the better handcuffs. I had an article probably about a month ago at this point in time where I was ranking the handcuffs, and I had him as a top 12 handcuff in the league. Like I had him up there as like a guy that I'm like, Saquon Barkley, fantasy gold. We all know that. Running behind one of the best offensive lines, having Jalen Hurts at quarterback. One of the, I won't say the main reasons, but it had a lot to do with Saquon's success, is when you have one of the best offensive lines and a rushing quarterback like Hurts. But like those same things apply to Will Shipley, right? I think people sometimes forget, like, he had a really strong recruiting profile. Like I think he was a 4 or 5 star guy. Like obviously didn't live up to it, but he's got great burst. He's had multiple runs that are super long, excellent pass catching skills, right? Even though I think the college production was a little bit lagged. So for me, if Barkley misses time, Shipley's an RB2 without question. And I think we want to be in on players on good offenses, and we want to be in on running backs behind elite offensive lines. Checks the boxes, man. People are too low on Will Shipley.
Yeah, I think that I honestly would, if I was just ranking people where I think they should go, I think it should be going around, like Tyler Algier, like Isaac Orendo, like that section of running backs where ADP has said these are the top handcuffs. I think he should be actually drafted right along with them, because he has one of the best situations of all the handcuff running backs if he was stepping in the case of an injury. Now, I think some of those other running backs have a little bit higher of an ADP because we've seen it before, and I would guess those others would have a little bit more of a stake to any sort of weekly value possibly than Will Shipley does.
But you don't need to take him that high. But you don't need to take him that high. I mean, that's
so I'm attacking it big time, especially like, look over on Fast Draft. He's going as RB65 there, 195 overall. Like, if you're drafting on Fast Draft right now, like, how do you not draft as much Will Shipley as you possibly can? If you're not drafting on Fast Draft yet, you should be. Use code Wyatt for first time deposit match up to $50. But like there, it's like every single draft. Like, how do you just not draft him?
Yeah, I mean, I'm ranked around, I think, the 160s, 170s. I'll take him in the 180s, but I'm sure he's going well after that, as you mentioned. So we are here for Will Shipley time. He is. It's tough because, like, somebody who follows college football, like, he was just, he was supposed to be like one of the next big things, and it didn't really work out. But sometimes when players, in my opinion, get the hype early and then don't really produce, part of me is kind of like, there's something still there for me. Like, the talent exists. Like, at some point in time where somebody was like, this is probably NFL talent going into college. So for me, I'm all about it, man. I know he's good. I've seen enough, and the situation he has really couldn't be any better, truly.
Yeah. All right, last player of the day, Tory Horton. So, gets drafted to the Seahawks in the 5th round. He's got size, he's got speed, something the Seahawks are kind of missing because they need that outside presence right now with their plan of going into the season with JSN and Cooper Kupp. Now, MVS is there, but we know who MVS is. We don't know who Tory Horton can be yet. This first game for the Seahawks, he led them in targets, 7 targets, only caught 3 of them, but it was for 31 yards and a touchdown. I really want to talk about Tory Horton because he's someone I wrote about right after the draft as a a later round pick who I thought could actually get to fantasy relevance, because I think there's a pathway here for him on the Seahawks. And I want to know what your confidence level is in Tory Horton. I don't want to say, becoming this like big value in fantasy necessarily, but do you think that he could find relevance in fantasy? Like there's someone who's on our waiver wire lists when we're going through the season at some point.
Yeah, well, I think for me, I'm not really that interested at all in Tory Horton. Here's the thing. I had him on like my campus to Canton team, college football team, and I like him as a talent, and I'm happy to see him like getting the love he deserves here so far. But I think that like very similar to Will Shipley, but the opposite side of things, I'm not in right now in the Seahawks situation, Seahawks offense. Okay. If you're like, oh, I'm gonna grab Tory Horton in round 18, like sure. I'm not gonna. I've done it myself. Like I've done it. Like I was like, yeah, let's do it. Or like some of the later drafts, like where they get to round 20 or 22, seeing like Scott Fishbowl, I might have taken him late. But for me, it really just comes down to like I have a lack of faith, I believe, in the Seahawks offense this year. I got a lack of faith in Sam Darnold. Really think the situation with the Vikings last year was more of the situation and not him. I think they're going to probably lean more heavy into the run with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. So, and then I've had some concern with JSN with where he was going. I've had to drop him a little bit from where he was before. So, I get the excitement. I like the profile. I mean, 5-year college players are kind of tough evals, in my opinion, especially considering his last season there. But he crushed his 3rd and 4th year there. If you want to take Tory Horton at the end of your drafts and it's somewhat deep, like I got no problem with that. Again, if I was in super deep drafts, I would take him. But for me, just in your standard redraft league, not standard scoring. So I would say a regular redraft league, say 16 rounds, average amount of starters, PPR, half PPR. He's not on my radar for those. I'll be rooting for the guy. He definitely won me some weeks in my college fantasy games. Always kind of had him on my radar a little bit, but the situation in the Seahawks just kind of scares me a little bit. I'm not necessarily sure that this is a team that's going to be able to support another pass catcher beyond JSN.
I'm a little bit more bullish because, one, I did like the prospect coming into the NFL, and I'm a little bit more bullish on the offense, I think, as a whole, mostly because I think they are going to get that offensive line, not necessarily like to be, top half of the league, but I think they're not going to be a liability for them in 2025. And if that could be the case, that means Sam Darnold could possibly survive another year in another offense, because we know that he needs that offensive line. If that's the case, and when we know that Sam Darnold likes to attack deep, I think there's a chance Tory Horton can get there on some possible, boom weeks in best ball as a last round pick. If he provides a couple weeks of, touchdowns, hey, that's going to help us win. Redraft leagues, tougher to get there, right? Definitely not draftable at this point. Someone I'm keeping in mind that if we're seeing some, trending in his direction, I'll be thinking about him. But for me, he is more of a best ball pick when I'm building out Seattle stacks, and I want to add another piece to my team.
Sure, man.
From there, yeah.
It's tough to build Seattle stacks because if you take JSN,
where do you go after that?
It's like, you get welcome. You grab Sam Darnold's one of the last quarterbacks to go. And then who do you stack him with? I mean, I have no problem going. I'm not drafting any other pass catcher. I'm not drafting. I've seen Elijah Arroyo catch a little bit of steam here, but like I'm team AJ Barner firmly over Arroyo, at least this year. Not that I believe AJ Barner is like a world beater, but I think he can block and Arroyo can't. Arroyo has a lot to learn. I think he's a lot more raw than people are giving him credit for, and AJ Barner is going to find himself out there much, much, much more. But like I'm not drafting AJ Barner. I'm not drafting any of the other people. Who is wait, Cooper Kupp's in Seattle? Is that true?
That was like the easiest fate of the season to me. I think that.
I think he's so cooked, man. I think he's so cooked. It's so funny. I had to like remind myself that we did this last time I spoke to you. I forgot Diggs was in New England because I was like, I think he's cooked. Even though I've come around a little bit on Diggs, this time I'm like, I completely forgot Cooper Kupp exists because I haven't drafted him once, man.
He's not loaded into my apps. I don't see his name ever.
I think I have him like 40 spots below ADP, so I just don't ever see his name. And MVS is there too, right?
Yep. That's who Tory Horton is really fighting with for snaps.
And oh my God. I mean,
you're even more disgusted with the Seahawks now.
Oh my God. MVS, I'm just happy he's still getting paid. Good for him and his family. Frankly. Yeah, man, I forgot Cooper Kupp existed. That's how low I am on him. Not to get too off base here, man. But, dude, I would never – when we talk about those stacks, I would probably be drafting Tory Horton as the second pass catcher at value, frankly. So I guess maybe talking in Tory Horton late in underdog. You got there. We got there, Wyatt.
What a great moment to end on, me getting Tyler on my side for Tory Horton. Before we get out of here, though, Tyler, please let everyone know where to find you, find your work, all those things. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, man. Everything's over at FTN Network. Started there at the top of the year. All the content is flowing through there. They got me writing articles again. Dusted off the old typewriter. So you can catch those over there. 1 or 2 of those a week. I'll have shorts. I've had to learn how to do the TikTok game. Which is fun, I guess, is one way of putting it. So I've been releasing some nice little shorts over there at FTN. I got the Crossing Routes podcast with my friend Herms, rocking in the Discord. It's always a good time. So everything is over at FTN. Make sure you check it out. And then Twitter is at FFTylerO.
Love it. Appreciate you again for being here. Everyone out there, if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, you can do so at YB_FF. If you haven't liked and subscribed to this video yet, you should absolutely and you should like and subscribe everything Player Profiler, because we're here to help you win in fantasy football. I mentioned the Fast Draft sign-up code. That's all I got for y'all this week. I'll talk to you next time. Later.